Big boy press conference. Big boy press conference. A big boy press conference. Hold a press conference. A big boy press conference.
Press conference. I guess a big boy press conference is what we're calling it. The press conference. The big boy press conference. Y'all are planning to have.
Gives his press conference. His big boy press conference. His big boy press conference. Big boy.
Hey, everybody, and welcome back to Speechless. I'm your host, Phares, 23-year-old conservative activist, host of Speechless, right here on YouTube, Twitch, Twitter, Rumble, wherever you're watching from. Don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the Big Boy live stream right here, comment what you think, share it with your friends, all that fun stuff. Let me know who's in the comments section right now. I will bring your guys' comments up on screen. We can talk about everything that we're talking about here today. The Big Boy press conference is about to be coming up for President Biden, scheduled for 6:30 Eastern Standard Time, so just about 13 minutes away. I do have it up and ready for when it decides to go live, so we will be covering all of that. This is a very, very important press conference because Biden's current standing is that so many people are calling for him to be removed. He's currently attending the NATO Summit, in which many are discussing the possibility of Ukraine being involved in some way. And this will be Biden's first formal solo news conference, since November 2023. So it's been like 8 months since the last time Joe Biden has done a solo news conference. And until just about a few weeks ago, many in the American populace, those who had their eyes shielded and veiled by the lamestream media, had no idea of Biden's clear health concerns, or at least had no idea of the severity of them. Many are saying that this press conference will be very, very high stakes for the president and is quote unquote make or break. However, I'd argue that the straw that broke the camel's back happened several weeks ago, at least with the presidential debate, if not even sooner than that. So many different things have happened even since then. He had the disastrous interview with George Stephanopoulos and more. However, this big boy press conference has already hit a snag. In fact, if we take a look right here, let me pull this up on screen. Producing my own show, everybody, bear with me. Share this tab. Let's bring it up right here. We can take a look. This is the New York Post. Biden's big boy press conference was already delayed, so it might miss evening news broadcast. President Biden's highly anticipated big boy press conference, as we just heard Karine Jean-Pierre, the Frenchman, talk about. He's announced that his first solo press conference in Washington since 2022, where he will address increasing calls to bow out of the 2024 race, has been delayed by 1 hour and is now scheduled to begin around 6:30 p.m. This means that the majority of local news won't be able to cover this for the most part, or it's going to be a lot more segmented. I know that here in Chicago, in this area, it'll be a lot harder for our WGN News at 9, who is probably prepping right now, to be able to get it all ready in time, and would have had a much easier way of doing so, or even the evening news that start around 6 or 6:30 or 7 in the Chicagoland area. Out in DC and on the East Coast, their evening news will have an even harder time to get it on. The new time means that the clips of the 81-year-old president stumbling and exceeding expectations, we'll see, likely won't be ready in time for widely watched evening news programs. That's exactly what I just said. A White House official told the Post that the event delay was, quote, due to the NATO schedule, which also began later than expected Thursday. Democrats who support Biden are anxious about the event at the Washington Convention Center, which will be his first time formally facing a room full of reporters in Washington since November 2022, and his first extended Q&A session with journalists since his confused June 27th debate performance. This is what we're going to see. Is there anything to hear anyways? Binky Brandt asks. That's a great question. I think there is. And here's really what I think a lot of people will be watching for. The first thing is this new discussion that many didn't know. While debate and conversation about Biden's health has been increasing and for years has speculated around dementia and other potential degenerative disorders, we now actually have confirmation that a Parkinson's disease specialist, Dr. Kevin Cannard, visited the White House 8 times across an 8-month span between July 2023 through March of this year, heightening concerns surrounding Biden's mental acuity and health concerns that have been mounting for years. The White House, however, has repeatedly downplayed the concerns over the visits, arguing the White House medical unit is composed of many different health professionals who frequent the White House, and that Cannard only saw Biden for his annual physicals. They're denying any relation to his Parkinson's specialty. However, there is a Parkinson's specialist that went on a major news network to discuss this a bit further. Quadruple board certified neurologist based in New York City told NBC News that President Joe Biden definitely had Parkinson's disease and degenerative of the brain. Dr. Tom Pitts was interviewed by NBC News' Tom Lamas. Let's take a look at a bit of this interview now, right here. Pulling it up.
To talk more about those 8 White House visits by the Parkinson's expert, I'm joined tonight by Dr. Tom Pitts. He's a quadruple board certified neurologist. He sees patients with Parkinson's all the time. He diagnoses it. I want to be completely transparent here. You've never examined President Biden. From my knowledge, you've never even spoken yet to President Biden.
Been in the
yeah,
room,
and we're just going to use what we have so far, which is what we've seen, the president's interviews, and the information coming out of the White House. So my first question to you is, as somebody who's a neurologist, what you've seen from the president over the last 2 years, what you saw at the debate, the last few interviews, the way he speaks, the way maybe he walks, have you noticed anything that gives you a red flag as a doctor?
Oh, yeah. I see him 20 times a day in clinic. I mean, it's ironic because he has just such classic features of neurodegeneration. I mean, word finding difficulties, and that's not, I couldn't find the word. That's from degeneration of the word retrieval area.
He's also overcome stuttering, though. Could that be part of that, too?
No, this is not a palatal issue or a speech discrepancy, which is very different from a lemmonode dysfunction, actual word retrieval, where you pick a similar question or talk around the issue, plus the rigidity, monotone voice.
Wait, go back to that, the rigidity. What do you mean?
Rigidity, loss of arm swing, standing up lordotically. You notice when he turns, it's kind of end block turning. It's not a quick turn. So that's one of the hallmarks of Parkinsonism is rigidity and bradykinesia, slow movement. And he has that hallmark, especially with the low voice that said was a cold, hypophonia. A small monotone voice like this over time is a hallmark of Parkinsonism. I could have diagnosed him from across the mall.
Here are some of the symptoms from Parkinson's. We just had him up there on the screen. If we can put him back. What about the movement? Some people have pointed out the way he walks. Sometimes it's not very fast, small steps. Is that something that is common in people who are battling a disease like Parkinson's?
Yeah, it's a hallmark. Shuffling gait, we call that. So little steps. Loss of arm swing from the rigidity. When we walk, we have a nice cadence. You notice he doesn't really swing his arms. And end block turning, meaning he kind of pivots around his foot. If you said, "Hey, President Biden," he wouldn't go like this. Yeah.
But I also know, and tell me if I'm wrong here, it's very hard to diagnose Parkinson's, isn't it? It's not simple. I mean, I've heard that it can be.
It's one of the easier movement disorders to diagnose, actually.
Right,
but it's so clinic. There's very little other. And I'm a Democrat. I always say about this.
Right.
It's just like, this guy is not a hard case.
But I've had relatives who have gone through neurological issues, and I've heard that sometimes Parkinson's is not very easy to nail. You have to take a lot of tests.
It's early on. If you're just presented with like hallucinations, that could be a variety of things, or just the cognitive problems. That could be Alzheimer's versus Parkinsonism, and that becomes a little nebulous. But once you start manifesting the hallmark motor symptoms,
right?
Slow movement, rigidity, mass facies, hypophonia. I mean, if a med student did not pick Parkinson's on the test, they'd be remediated.
So let me ask.
Man, and so we have a Parkinson's doctor that has obviously made his way to the White House 8 times within just about the last year. Then we have this doctor who is on NBC calling it blatant Parkinson's. And while I understand Binky's point that different standards vary from doctor for doctor, they just give an opinion. Yeah, absolutely true. However, when Biden is exhibiting the symptoms that a doctor would say these are the symptoms, well, just like he said, if a med school student didn't pick Parkinson's, they'd be done. So I obviously am not an expert. That's why I bring on different sources, different examples, and talk about different things. However, the point of this entire thing is to say Biden faces an uphill battle in convincing people that he is mentally and physically equipped to not only make it through an election, but also the next 4 years. And even people from his own party, as we keep an eye on the clock, 4 minutes until we would look at the live stream, which I'm keeping an eye on. We even noticed calls from his own party for him to drop out. And we could take a look right here at the Daily Wire, which is keeping a live and updated list of people that might be that are calling on Joe Biden to drop out of the 2024 presidential election. And so we can take a look right here, starting with people that have come out today, July 11th, 2024. Rep. Greg Stanton is one that is currently trending about it. Ed Case, a Democrat from Hawaii. Brad Schneider from Illinois. Hillary Scholten from Michigan. And we go yesterday, Earl Blumenauer from Oregon. Peter Welch from Vermont. Lieutenant Governor from New York, Antonio Delgado. We go to July 9th, Pat Ryan from New York. July 8th, Mikey Sherrill from New Jersey. July 7th, Mark Takano, Jerry Nadler, who has actually since rescinded, just today, I believe, rescinded his call on Biden to drop out, saying that everybody's getting behind him. Joseph Morell, Adam Smith, we go back further and further and further, all the way just since the debate into July 7th, Democrats that are calling on their own democratically elected primary nominee and current president to bow out of the race. Even Americans want Joe Biden to drop out as of right now. A whopping 2/3 of Americans, most Biden supporters, want the president to drop out of the 2024 race. According to, let's check this. The ABC Washington Post Ipsos survey found that 67% of U.S. adults, 62% of Democrats and Democrat-leaning independents, and 54% of Biden supporters want the president to abandon his re-election campaign. And all 85% of Americans said that the 81-year-old was too old to finish a second term in the Oval Office. A view shared by 81% of Biden voters, as you can see right here in this visual representation of this, is that nobody wants Biden. Biden is not the pick. They don't want him. But I think that there's a very, very important piece. If you are a Republican or a conservative, we need to keep an eye on. We don't want Biden removed right now if you're a Republican or conservative, because we don't want Kamala. And we definitely don't want anybody else as a possibility, whether that's Gavin Newsom, Michelle Obama, who knows who could come out of the woodwork. If Biden were to be removed, we want to play with the devil that we know, not the devil that we don't. And that is Joe Biden. We know the attacks on Biden. We don't even have to get in. And while Republicans and conservatives often do win on policy, we don't even have to refute the abortion arguments or the LGBTQ stuff. We don't have to get into the more divisive issues, because it's not divisive to say that their candidate shouldn't even be running a lawnmower, let alone a country. So right now, we want the devil we know. And we'll see coming up here very, very soon as to whether or not this devil that we claim to know is hopped up on drugs, or if they've been able to secure just enough of a steroid, allegedly, to make Biden somewhat coherent during this press conference tonight. Joe Biden is the first president since Ronald Reagan to hold such few press conferences during a presidential term. Obviously, we know during Reagan's second term, his decline began a little bit. We are waiting on the Associated Press and others to start their live streams. And so I will make sure to keep getting to comments and everything. I am currently live, bringing up rather interesting comments. Keep your comments flowing. Let me know what you are thinking and what you're talking about. I'd love to see exactly what you guys have to say. I'm making sure I have any kind of the live stream up and ready when we're going here. I do see that Biden accidentally introduced Zelensky as President Putin at the NATO Summit earlier today. I can bring that on screen. This is just earlier today on X. Here we go. Take a look and a listen.
And now I want to hand it over to the president of Ukraine, who has as much courage as he has determination. Ladies and gentlemen, President Putin. President Putin. We're going to beat President Putin. President Zelensky. I'm so focused on beating Putin, we got to worry about it. Anyway.
That is an awful.
You are a hell of a lot better.
That is an awful mix-up to have. That is insane. Absolutely insane. As I see now, Biden is expected to talk soon. We have the NATO summit. Let me pull this up on screen. You guys can see exactly where I'm getting this from. I can share this tab instead. And you can hear the music and everything like that. I will mute that for you guys. I'm going to mute it for myself too. Let's mute that here. So then I'll have that up on screen so then we can keep an eye on it and bring it up and ready for when Biden decides to come out and start speaking or rambling or mumbling or whatever we see. And we'll watch it. We'll react to it right here live. Thank you guys so much for tuning in wherever you are tuning in from. Do not forget, if you are new to the channel, do not forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, comment what you think, share it with your friends. I'm a big boy on the Big Boy live stream talking about the Big Boy press conference. It's about to come up for the big man, big boy, Joe Biden. And so make sure you guys don't miss a minute of any of my commentary. Like, subscribe, comment, and share. Thank you so, so much for tuning in. We're going to talk about all of this, and we're going to break it down afterwards. I might even have some other news to talk about. I know that there's different things going on in the world that I do want to discuss, such as the different people that are calling on Biden to resign, some that are his defenders, and met plenty of other stories. Shelley Duvall, the actress known for her roles in The Shining, in Popeye, I believe she played Olive Oil, has passed away. So rest in peace, Shelley Duvall, and God bless her. That's pretty much all I know about that story, but I do know that there's some other things to discuss, and I do have them. Ben Shapiro talked in front of Congress just yesterday, and so I will make sure if we have time after this press conference, which I can't imagine it would necessarily go and become anything that long, because Joe Biden can't form a coherent sentence, let alone talk to the press for that long. So like I said, we will make sure to cover all of that. Greetings from Hungary. Thank you so much for tuning in. Please, if you wouldn't mind, like this video, subscribe to the channel, comment what you think, share it with your friends. Richard, or however you would pronounce that. Thank you for joining. Definitely like, subscribe, and all that fun stuff. I'd really appreciate it, and share it with your friends. We will be discussing all of this that comes with Biden's press conference, which is starting already later than expected. Originally, it was supposed to start at 6:30 or 5:30 Eastern Standard Time. Now it's supposed to start at 6:30 Eastern Standard Time. Now we are close to 5 minutes past that due date. In the meantime, I already liked it. Thank you, Richard. I appreciate it, everybody. Richard, go and I see the little chica over the A. That's why I keep saying Richard. So please go share this with your friends, though, in Hungary. If we can get all of Hungary to like this, maybe then I will no longer go hungry, because then I will make the money from the YouTube channel to buy my food. So thank you so much. God bless you. God bless Hungary and America. You did great. You answered all the questions correctly. The Jill Biden quote, of course. I do want to point out, while we wait for this, I can bring up, I do have other videos and stuff that we can discuss during this. ABC News anchors George Stephanopoulos this week got caught by TMZ. George Stephanopoulos last week, and I covered this on Sunday, just recently had Biden on for his first interview since the disastrous debate. Well, George Stephanopoulos was out on the streets of New York when a TMZ reporter found him and had this to ask him. And then here's what George Stephanopoulos had to say. Take a look and listen right here.
Hey, how you doing? Good. What do you think? Do you think Biden should step down? You talked to him more than anybody else have lately, and you can be honest. You don't think he can serve 4 more years? All right, that's an answer.
You hear that? Let's go one more time.
And you can be honest.
I don't think he can serve 4 more years. Absolutely fascinating, coming from the man who actually got to talk with the president in his first interview. Doesn't think that he can serve 4 more years. Now, like I said, many of the American people are in a comparable boat, thinking just that Biden does not seem to be able to handle 4 more years. It's an absolutely fascinating instance of American history. And this is what I would say is today, think about this. We've become so accustomed to discussing Biden's health and his mental health and his ability to actually form what even a coherent sentence, let alone govern for the last 4 years, the 4 prior to this. And so, like, zoom out for a second. Zoom out even back to 2016, in which nobody was talking about. The only people that were talking about the mental competency of a presidential candidate were people like Hillary trying to claim that Trump was insane, or that he had mental issues, that he was an egomaniac, a narcissist, blah, blah, blah. But nobody was talking about whether or not the presidential candidate had Alzheimer's or Parkinson's, or would literally be alive throughout his term. Nobody was asking that question. That was not a topic of the conversation. In fact, for the vast majority of American history, minus maybe FDR and the latter half of Reagan's second term, for the most part, and correct me if I'm wrong, but while presidents have had health problems, nobody was saying, hey, maybe this guy that is currently running for another 4 years should not, because his health is not there. Maybe the reason why we haven't been able to have that conversation is because of a lack of social media, and so we weren't able to actually talk and share that information as freely. I'm really wondering what's going on. Is the music still playing here? I don't hear it anymore. Let's refresh this page. I'll pull that off. Nope, the music is still playing. What is going on? According to this, they are waiting for him to arrive. Follow along for updates. So we are still waiting for the president. So I really am doing my absolute best. I want to make sure that I don't bring up a new story to talk about, and then we all of a sudden have to get into it. So that's why I'm doing my best to bring in these little stories that I had. Let's see what we could find in the meantime. Keep your comments coming. Yes, Project 2025. Project 2025 is what Joe Biden. Joe Biden, don't get dead tour. But we could talk about Project 2025 as I know it, because that seems to be what Biden's entire plan currently is to do, is to have his interns tweet about this nebulous idea of Project 2025, this fascinating, honestly, just a slight playbook from the Heritage Foundation, a conservative nonprofit that honestly lists a lot of policy and things I agree with. Even, and I'll cover this later if we have time, is Ben Shapiro was even questioned by Eric Swalwell, to the point of which Ben destroyed Eric Swalwell in that conversation. And so we will cover that later, assuming there is time. But yeah, Project 2025 seems to be Biden's campaign plan right now. I'll be honest, I think Michael J. Fox, who actually does have Parkinson's, would make a much better president than Biden. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. We are waiting for Biden's big boy press conference, which I just think it's so funny. Let's talk. I feel like, what is your guess on how many minutes Biden will be able to talk without a mistake? I give it 1, maybe 1.5. However long his intro that he practiced takes, but about half that, because I'll only get through maybe a minute of it, if that. Without any kind of a mess up or a mistake. Heck, I would even I would say there's a possibility that very beginning he messes up. Very beginning of it. I want to bring this back up though, because I think it's worth bringing up and talking about before this press conference starts though. One more time, let's give it up for the French lady, Karine Jean-Pierre, and her whole her framing and marketing disaster, frankly, of calling this a big boy press conference that has been discussed all week. Again, this is how it was framed all week. Here are all of the White House press conferences. Here's all that they had to say. And this is what they were touting all week, this big boy press conference.
Big boy press conference. Big boy press conference. A big boy press conference. Hold a press conference. A big boy press conference.
Press conference. I guess a big boy press conference is what we're calling it. The press conference, the big boy press conference that y'all are planning to have.
Gives his press conference, his big boy press conference, his big boy press conference. Big boy press conference.
Like they said it a lot of times. She was even joking there. Once again, like this is how you know that Biden's clear mental decline is the most open secret in all of America, all of the world right here. There is no reason that we should be calling the President of the United States his press conference, something that should be done. Like Trump did a press conference a day during COVID, like at least one a day. And look, presidents don't necessarily need to make press conferences every day, but it's like kind of a part of the job description. Like I would say it's probably within the top 5 things a president should do or should be able to do is coherently communicate what they are doing to the press and to the people through actions such as a press conference. However, now it's become a joke. Our nation is currently a joke. That is what Joe Biden has turned this country into. But it's not really Joe Biden. Joe Biden is being pushed into this through bad actors like Jill, Hunter, and a ton of others. And I guarantee you, before like the last 2 weeks, Obama was a part of it. Kamala's a part of it. All of these people that are soaking up the power of this feeble, dumb, sick, ill old man. So much so, and for so much personal gain, that now this squeezed out sponge of a man that is Joe Biden is now a laughingstock. Not that he wasn't before, but so much so now that we call his press conference a normal activity for a president, a big boy press conference. That is how low our standard of the American president is now. I don't know how much lower we can get. Is that not sad to anybody else? This is why I say step back and understand the moment for such a time as this that we are in. Our American president is going to give a press conference that by his own administration and his own press secretary, the woman who is tasked with going and modeling and constructing the narrative of the president's agenda, has labeled the president's first press conference in a long time as a, quote, big boy press conference. And this even comes as, look, I just had those allegations I discussed on Sunday about how there was a radio station that fired a woman because she came out and said that the administration gave her questions and she had to like give only those questions. She had to go all by that. She came out and said that she got fired for that. Now there's even claims at a Milwaukee radio station. We can see this right here. I'll pull this up on screen. I'm keeping an eye on for when this press conference is supposed to actually start. I'm going to refresh the page, see if it's actually, nope, it doesn't seem that it has started yet. I see there's like you guys can disregard that ad. They're not paying me. Nope, it still has not started yet. And so I'll bring this story up on screen. Show you this tab. Milwaukee Radio Network Civic Media has just admitted that the Biden campaign made them make multiple edits to Biden's radio interview before it aired. They did make multiple edits. The edits went as far as, quote, removing entire segments and making cuts, according to Milwaukee Journal Sentinel. This comes just days after a Philly radio host admitted she had been given questions by the Biden regime in advance. She was later fired. This is a real and developing story. Nick Swartor had said it. Here is Benny Johnson, dropped it right here. The two edits, according to the station, were at the time 520, the removal of, and in addition to that, I have more blacks in my administration than any other president, all other presidents combined, and in major positions, cabinet positions, and at 1415, in reference to Donald Trump's call for the death penalty for the Central Park Five, the removal of, I don't know if they even call for their hanging up, but they said convicted of murder. So they're editing everything. They're making it impossible to actually understand and believe anything that they put out about this presidency. It makes absolutely, look, you would constantly hear from people that apparently Trump was the enemy of the free press. You guys remember hearing that? Because Trump would go out and he would say things like, the press is the enemy of the people. They lie to you. Oh, those people in the back, they're terrible. They don't care about you. They lie to you. They're so bad. They tell you lies about me. They spread the Russian collusion hoax. They say lies. They lie to you. He would say that. And then the liberal media would come back and be like, Trump is the enemy of the free press. He keeps crapping on the media. He removed that one CNN douche from being allowed in the press briefing room, whatever. But the thing is, as far as I know, Donald Trump never arrived and said, here are the questions you have to ask me. Don't go off script. Donald Trump never had his administration force a media outlet to edit an interview, even when in sometimes, I'll admit it probably could have been in his best interest. But Joe Biden did. And so who really is the enemy of the free press? Donald Trump or Joe Biden? I'd argue it's the latter. Now, let's see if he can make it through this press conference, as it seems as he's coming on stage sometime soon. Let's take a look. We'll keep an eye for when he actually comes on. We'll keep that up right there. What are my feelings on who is behind this planned finishing of Biden? I haven't heard of necessarily finishing of Biden. Like, are you saying that somebody's going to try to off him? I would not recommend that. And for any FBI agent that is currently watching, I'm not making any threat. That's not what I'm talking. I would say don't do that. Bad idea. Advise against it. That's not a topic I want to discuss on this show. That is not Joe Biden. But that was quite an interesting look right there that we got. I agree. I can't say I feel sorry for Biden's mistake, but I do feel bad this wife is conducting early elderly abuse when Biden clearly does not have the mental capacity to perform as president. It's all about money and power. His babysitter. Absolutely. Demon Goral, thank you so much for joining. I don't know who. Yeah, I can get angry sometimes. As I tell my girlfriend all the time, I'm always a little angry. I have my pilot light on. It's just how I am. Dark Cav activated, something like that. We'll see. But everybody, as we wait for the president to come on, obviously keep that comment section going. I'll bring your comments on screen even as Biden talks. I don't want to interrupt him too much because he'll probably do that himself, but I will bring your comments on screen so you guys can be involved and share what you think. We'll recap it a little bit afterwards. I have my notepad right here, so I'll be taking some notes during it. Of some points and areas we can talk about. I'll even bring up Twitter afterwards, and we can go over that a little bit more if we have time, depending on how long the press conference is afterwards. I have other news stories I'd love to talk to you guys about. We will definitely recap with some people that are coming out for Biden, some of his fiercest allies, and also some others that are coming out against him. Some might even, which surprise you. So make sure you guys stay tuned for all of that. Keep your comments coming. Everything you're seeing right now is what a democracy reaps. Yeah, to some extent. If you don't actually protect any of what, and we're not even a democracy, we're a constitutional republic with democratic undertones, but absolutely. But we're coming up here soon, or just awaiting the president to join. We are now 20 minutes behind schedule, which, as much as I dislike Biden, and it could have some higher meaning, is not unlike a president. We kind of just are at the whim of a president's schedule. It's usually you're hard pressed to find an instance in which the president is waiting on somebody else. Oftentimes people are waiting on the president for any president. That's not just Joe Biden. But I don't know. Maybe his nap ran long. It is getting pretty close to that 8 o'clock hour that we know that he needs to go to sleep by. So we will see. Who is pulling the strings in the background? It's different. It's a different. I think it's changing. I think originally Jill had something to do with it. I think Jill has taken a significant number of the reins, especially as it would seem that that Obama might be even starting to back away a little bit. He filled his diaper. They're changing. That's my point. Lawfare, wrong is right, etc. That's what a democracy reaps. We are a constitutional republic. You are correct. Absolutely. Barack Obama. Yeah. Yeah, it was. But as I'll cover after this press conference, George Clooney wrote an op-ed in the New York Times, of which it has been pretty much confirmed that George and Obama had conversation prior to the op-ed that denounced Biden and said that Biden should step aside. And Obama did not necessarily advise against the op-ed. So is Obama turning on Biden? It is widely understood and quietly talked about that Obama and Biden did not get along very well, and that Obama brought in Joe because he was a more he brought in a lot of the East Coast and also brought in a lot of money for Obama's presidential campaign. And that's why Joe was a big asset to Obama during the campaign, not in any way related to actually liking one another. A lot of presidents and vice presidents don't get along, though. It's kind of a staple because you want to bring on somebody that's vastly different from you so that they can attract a different type of crowd. It's simply politics. And you don't need to be best friends with if your vice president is your homie, and you're just like, yo, bro, like, let's go kick it in the Oval Office. I don't necessarily think that would always make for the best policy. Coming up, President of the United States press conference. Biden is expected to speak soon. We are now nearing, I'm willing to bet that this will near the 30-minute late mark. For the entirety of, we're just about 23 minutes late right now. And I'm surprised I was able to fill the content gap in that. So honestly, if you guys have never ran a show before, I'm going to give myself a pat on the back there real quick, just because a lot of times when you do live shows like this, it's harder to fill that content gap when you're all alone. I don't have anybody to converse with besides you guys. And so I see that there's a great follower on Rumble now. Thank you, Moto GTE. Thank you for the follow on Rumble. I really appreciate it. Make sure wherever you guys are watching from that you like this video, subscribe to the channel, comment what you think, share it with your friends, all that fun stuff. Keep those comments coming on whatever you guys are thinking. They're either changing his diaper, they're finishing injecting him with whatever concoction they feel will benefit him. Yeah, I don't know what it's going to be tonight. Put whatever steroid or stimulant you think that Joe Biden is going to be on tonight. Put it in the comments. I'm curious. I'm curious what you guys think. Joe Biden's big boy press conference coming up soon. Very excited to see exactly what he tries to say. Kevin says he's ready with his Biden bingo card. I know we should make a drinking game out of this. Let's make some rules, some Biden drinking games. Every time that he says Donald Trump, drink. If he mistakes any noun for another noun, like Zelensky for Putin, or where he currently is with somewhere else, that's a drink. Any gibberish, like if we cannot understand at all what he says, that's a drink. Are we all on board with those? What are you guys drinking tonight? What are you guys using for your Biden drinking game bingo card? I got my leftist tears mug right here. I am not in any way affiliated with the Daily Wire, but I do like my leftist tears tumbler. Every time he looks down and pauses, take a shot. Yeah, Probably. I wonder, here's another thing I wonder. Let's our expectation. So obviously there's an expectation for this big boy press conference, which maybe that was the part of the big boy. I know I went on my rant about calling it a big boy press conference, but maybe there is like a small ounce of intelligence to that move. Overall, I will say has to be a virgin drink or we will not survive. And Richard's drinking Bacardi with Coke. Good for you, Richard. That's not a bad mix. But what I will say, so maybe there was a small level of intellectualism that went into the big boy branding, the BBB. And that would be the BBB. That would be that they're lowering expectations. Look, yes, it makes us look weak on the world stage. It makes Biden seem weak as an individual. But when he's looking to get reelected, they're not really caring how we look on the world stage. They're trying to narrow everybody's focus in. And so if they lower the expectation that this is going to be a big boy press conference, and he can, if the bar is so low, this is what I used to say about college. And I say this jokingly. I did well in college. I'm going to law school, so this is like a joke. But if you set the bar low, you can step right over it. If people don't expect much from you, then when you even minorly exceed expectations, it's considered a win. An example of this would be J.B. Pritzker running the state of Illinois. J.B. Pritzker helped an already failing state go even further into debt. We're like competing with California for most debt of a state. But then he begged the federal government, when it was controlled by Joe Biden, for money. So then we were able to pay off some of our debt and increase our credit rating. For the sake of simplicity, essentially he increased our credit rating from like an F to a D- or an F+. Like it wasn't that great. However, he set the bar low. He made it so our credit rating was so bad as a state. He set the bar low, and that fat man, who I'm surprised can walk at all, stepped right over that bar with the help of a federal government that is also in a serious amount of debt. Basically, he just transferred our state debt to the federal government and called it a win. But to the average American or the average Illinoisan, who doesn't even usually care, the average Illinoisan probably doesn't really care about our state debt all that much. They said they see, and they see what JB comes out and says is that, and it's objectively true. Our credit rating did get better, but it was propped up by a house of cards known as the federal government. So how true would that really be at that point? It would only be true in the semantic sense. It is semantically true. Let's see what we got here. They called it a big boy press conference in reference to a reporter asking when he would have a big boy conference. White House tried to play off of it. Gotcha. I didn't see that whole part, but either way, it is not the smartest move to keep that going. How is it Kev only has between 5 to 8 viewers? It's been away for a while and still only upwards of 10 viewers. Come on, people. Let's get these. I appreciate you guys. Yeah, keep those hearts coming, everything like that. I will say on Twitter right now, I have a total of like 106 viewers. And so thank you on all those. On Facebook, I have like 2. So that's pretty awesome. I can't see my Rumble viewership from here right now, but I see that I've gotten new followers. So I appreciate that. If you're currently on Rumble, send out a comment. Let me know if you guys are watching. I'd appreciate it. Currently live on that, keeping an eye for when this will begin. But we will be on soon. I see you got like 10 people on Rumble, so I appreciate I appreciate all that. Thank you guys. But yeah, we're going to see this press conference soon. Let's see what is currently trending on X, see if there's anything that we're learning about this press conference, because it's supposed to be going on very, very soon. I'm not necessarily seeing anything yet, but we will be back soon. My X handle for anybody, if you guys want to find me most places, you can either look up Speechless Kev, or you can do Kevin the Phares. This is my X handle. I'm sending it to a lot of my things right now, and you can even find it right there. So that would be me on X, and you can go find that there. I also, in the meantime, just so that I can have like a short break real quick, I am going to go to an ad just to shout out a quick sponsor, Freedom 20. Everybody go check out Freedom 20. Use code breakaway at checkout or code USA. Either of those should get you like 15% off. And so I will be right back after this, and we will keep an eye on when this is going to come up, because Biden seems to be late. Here we go. And we are back and still waiting for when this press conference might actually begin. I don't know about you guys, but I'm starting to think that maybe it might not happen. Maybe he already fell asleep. And so we will figure it out. But keep those comments coming. What do your guys expect? Oh, ouch. Sorry if that was a little loud. That happens. I did not put that ad in there. I had one of my Breakaway USA friends put it in there, and so the noise volume might have been a little loud, but it's a good ad. And check out Freedom 20. They do great work. And I drink their water. You guys can see this one's almost out. This water ain't sleepy, and none of this water uses fluorides. And so if you don't want to get gay like the frogs, then you guys should drink some Freedom 20. It's pretty awesome. Let's see what else we got going on in the world. No problem, just caught off guard. Biden got scared. Yeah, maybe Biden did get scared. Everybody, if you're just tuning in, no matter where you're tuning in from, we are waiting for the Biden big boy press conference to actually start. He is not shown as of now. I am waiting on this screen. Where do you get the water? I can actually send the link, freedom20.USA. If you guys want to get the water and you're on YouTube right now, USA. Oh, wait, that's the wrong link. The link I just sent is the wrong link. I forgot part of it. Sorry. There we go. That's the link right there. We're going to do freedom20.com/USA. There we go. You guys can use the one that Binky Brandt sent on Facebook, or you can use this one that I just sent on YouTube, freedom20.com/USA, and that'll get you there. And you'll see, I can even pull it up on screen. You can see my picture. I'm a little cut off on this version. Let me see if I can bring it bigger. Yeah, there we go. I'm like right there. This is when I was a little bit heavier, but that's me. And we got a lot of the Breakaway USA team here. And so you can use code breakaway at checkout for 15% off. I guess they don't have me right here, which is totally fine. I'm a little butthurt about that, but maybe I did something wrong and they're not happy with me, but I'm pushing their stuff. Oh, there I am. Again, a little bit heavier there. This is me. This is what it's come to. This water won't make you gay, with Simon right there in his earrings. That's funny. But yeah, go check it out. It might seem a little bit expensive, but it's supporting good water, and it is good water. I think you'll taste the difference. To Biden, are you scared? You should be. Yeah, absolutely. But yeah, check out Freedom 20, guys. I'd appreciate it. You got a lot of good reviews down there. So yeah. We'll go back and check on the press conference, and he's still not there. Oh, here we go. Okay, finally, it seems like it might be starting. Let's take a look. Still got some music playing, but this is Biden's, for everybody who's just tuning in. We are live streaming and reacting to Biden's first press conference in a very long time, and a very important, what some are calling a make or break press conference, to try to show the world whether or not he has the mental competency to make it through an election cycle the next 4 years, or even a short time answering questions without a teleprompter. Maybe, we'll see. Hopefully without scripted questions. I mean, we have to question it all now. As we know, radio stations have edited out and been forced to ask specific questions. We know that other interviewers have had to do the same thing. We've seen it. We know. And so we question how often or how much is actually real, or if this is all just a Hollywood production. I mean, Joe Biden always touts his Hollywood friends. Maybe it's just a Hollywood production. We're still just having some music, I see. So everybody keep those comments coming, especially as Biden is on stage. Let me know what you're thinking about what he's saying. If he's saying anything, what do you guys think? If you bring up the comments, if you let them, if you bring them up there, we will bring them onto screen and I will talk about them. Let's see if he falls over. Absolutely. I will bring them on screen as he's talking. I'm going to try to interrupt as little as possible so we can fully understand exactly what the president is saying. And we will be able to fully immerse ourselves in everything that Joe Biden is saying. So thank you guys so much for tuning in. It seems as though this might start soon. And we'll see what kind of questions he gets. I'm anticipating questions regarding his health, whether or not maybe even directed specifically at Parkinson's and his Parkinson's doctors. I'm anticipating questions regarding whether or not he stays in the race, around specific calls, such as even headliners such as George Clooney calling for him to step down, and others, many within his own party that are holding positions of leadership in the federal government. Many are calling for Biden to resign and get off the ticket, which would usher in the idea of Kamala Harris, which we will talk about that and more following the end of this press conference, which is now starting 40 minutes later than the anticipated schedule. And so we're gonna see what we can, what he actually says. If it's unscripted, he's screwed. We'll see. We'll see. Who knows what kind of drugs they have him on? We will be reacting to all this as it comes live. And thank you guys for joining me with this. And as always, as I always say, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and get others to subscribe, please. If you have friends, if you even have another YouTube channel that you use, maybe you have one that you use for watching things and one that you use for content, consider subscribing with both. Comment on these videos, share this with your friends. That's the most important thing. Share my channel with your friends, because this is how we get people exposed to things that are outside the lamestream media, and also exposed to younger, like I'm a young person. I'm 23 years old. I started doing politics and political commentary just a few years ago. I started politics about 8-9 years ago now. And it's been a whirlwind. And there's a lot of people out there that are similar to me that don't necessarily have the means, knowledge, know-how, or just the want to start getting messages like this out there and actually talking to average people. And I'm not, when I say whoever's watching, you're special in your own little way, but when I say average people, normal people. I'm not the lamestream media. I'm not MSNBC sucking off the other like millionaires that are paying the bills. No, I'm out here and I'm telling you like it is. Nobody dictates what I say. Nobody dictates what I say. I will say what I want to say, how I want to say it. And I'm not going to let anybody dictate what I say. I won't. So make sure you guys, so that's my winded way to say, share this with your friends and share it wide and share it far. Post this link on all of your social medias. I'd appreciate it. Seems like they're filing in more and more press. So we will be starting soon. It's been very, very late. I have a friend who just texted me. He goes, "Oh, looks like I'm missing the press conference." I'm going to tell him it hasn't even started yet. It hasn't even started yet, but I appreciate this. This is a very nice thing of you to say, Ryan Mack. I've learned more from you and some younger conservatives than the elder Main Street guys. Yeah, I mean, I'm not taking what I think from anything other than my application of the education I have received and the experiences that I've had. So, absolutely, even with the vulgarity. I let him know Biden was late. But everybody, yes, always like, subscribe, comment, share, and we will see what happens once this actually starts. I will make sure just around now, for anybody who's watching this after it airs on YouTube, I will be putting in chapters so that you can go and start watching the press conference when it actually starts. But it should be starting soon. We are waiting. And in the meantime, everybody, while you guys are waiting, keep this tab open and share the link with your friends. But let's see if they're saying anything. I will say it does look like a Disney scene. Honestly, what it looks like a little bit here is it kind of looks like the Hall of Presidents. If you've ever been to Disney World, it does kind of look like the Hall of Presidents where they have all the presidents on that really, really wide stage. It does. I'll agree with that. We'll hope that maybe he'll get on stage soon. We'll see what happens. It looks like they're getting all the press in there, and we're going to see actually what happens. I don't know. This is kind of crazy. It's taken quite a long time for them to be able to get Biden on the stage. It's obviously delayed quite a bit, so we'll hope that maybe sometime soon. Kevin, I do see. Thank you for following me. Superman theme. What the F? True. But we'll be seeing it soon. He'll be in there sometime soon. I hope. Maybe they'll even just have somebody come on stage and it'll be like, "Sorry guys, thanks for waiting." Yep, we'll keep an eye on here. It seems like people are still filing in. We'll see what happens. I see more and more people are joining. Thank you so much. We're speculating as to why do you guys think? Let me know in the comments section right now. Why do you think that this press conference has been delayed so much? Originally, it was supposed to start even prior to today. It was supposed to start at 4:30 Eastern Standard Time, which would be 5:30 Central. And then that got delayed even further to where then it was now 5:30, which would have been 6:30 Eastern Time. And now we're at 6:15 Central Standard Time. So it's 7:15 there. Biden's bedtime, as we know, Biden's bedtime is 8 p.m. I believe he has a hard stop at 8 p.m. So maybe the reason is that Biden wants to be able to tell the press, I got to go to bed. Everybody. It's 8 p.m. It's time for me to go to bed. It's my bedtime. Jill's waiting for me. So I got to go to sleep. Sorry, everybody. I don't know. Still boring. Overdosed on adrenaline. Jesus. Binky. That's a little harsh, maybe, don't you think? I don't know. I really hoped it. Well, Richard hoped it had been over by now. It is 1:15 in Hungary. Geez. Tomorrow will start very hardly, it seems. Well, Richard, I appreciate you joining me and staying up so late. That's a truly dedicated individual. And so thank you. Thank you so much. Everybody, wherever you're watching from, like this video, subscribe to the channel, comment what you think, share it with your friends, all that fun stuff. I'd appreciate it. I did see somebody on Twitter. So in my comments thing here on my live streaming software, it does not allow me to share what comes in through Twitter, but I do want to share this. I will bring up my privacy. Somebody said here, he's still trying to grow a pair. I love that. Thank you, Kavinsky. Kavinsky, that's funny on Twitter. He's still trying to grow a pair. I'm gonna like that. That was a good one. I'll get back here. That was a good one. He is still trying to grow a pair. If you guys want to, wherever you guys are watching from, check me out on YouTube, Speechless with Kev. I'd appreciate that. If you're on Twitter right now, on X, it should be my bio. Make sure you guys follow me on X. Kevin the Phares on X, Speechless with Kev on YouTube. We will be airing this press conference as soon as it comes on. We've been going live here for just about an hour now. I was only planning on 15 minutes of content prior to reacting to this, but I was able to fill all 1 hour of the content up until now. And I still have more to cover afterwards if we have time, but it seems like this press conference, we'll see exactly for how long Biden is having us wait. I'd really be interested to see exactly what he has to say, what kind of questions he'll answer, how long he'll be able to answer them, and what is actually going on. I wonder if he'll address the drastic wait that we have had to try to cover this. It is kind of crazy to me that it has taken so long. It looks like there are reporters in the room, obviously some maybe even speaking. Let's take a look and a listen to see if there's anything else or if it's still the theme music. Still the theme music. Well, that theme music even makes me think of Jill Biden. I don't know if you guys heard, but Jill Biden had the Marine Corps band write her own song. Which was not anything I was planning on covering today. Maybe we'll cover it after. But Jill Biden apparently had her own Hail to the Chief made. And I think that's kind of hilarious. And so we might cover that actually after the press conference. I'll bring up Jill Biden's own Hail to the Chief theme. It's called Fanfare for the First Lady. And we have the song. And we're going to listen to it later after this. At a minimum, I'll make sure I get to that after all of this. So he will fall into the flag. Seen this one before. Wouldn't surprise me. Wouldn't surprise me. We'll be covering all of it as soon as it starts. Make sure wherever you guys are watching from to follow me and follow me everywhere because I post a lot of different content in a lot of different places. If you guys are on TikTok, I am on TikTok. I don't like TikTok, but I don't know why I'm saying it like that, but you can go check me out on TikTok. And eventually I will probably live stream there because a lot of dummies are on there and I could probably debate some dummies. They ran out of Depends. Hippie, thanks for joining. Don't forget to subscribe if you're not already. I appreciate you joining. We're going to see what happens. Biden will soon be on. They ran out of Depends. Maybe that was the issue. He's on his phone with Putin apologizing. Man, ripping into it. Richard from Hungary. Richard. Let's hear a little bit more of the, maybe there's anything. I wonder if Jill will make an appearance. You guys think Jill will make an appearance? Chug your drink. If Jill is making an appearance. Dude, you sound like an old man saying TikTok. I am an old man. I'm an old soul. This is a thing. I'll be completely honest with you. I told people this. I had people tell me, because I had a radio show. My first content that I ever did was I had a radio show. It was not very good when I first started. I was pretty bad. I got better. I mean, the more you do something, the more you practice, the better you get. That's how I've always been. But I had a radio show, and then for a long time, people were telling me, and I'd have different guests on. I had some really cool guests on when it was just a radio show. I had Alex Clark on to talk about the Oscars before. Actually, this is a fun story. I don't think I've ever told this story on air, but this will be a fun short one that I can. So if you guys don't know, so Alex Clark from Turning Point USA, I was involved with Turning Point USA for quite a while. I still have mutual connection with them. Charlie Kirk is a good friend. But I reached out and I said, hey, the Oscars are coming up just a few years ago. I was like, the Oscars are coming up and I really want to talk to Alex Clark because she knows fashion. She talks a lot about pop culture. She had her whole show, Poplitics, which is talked a lot about pop culture. And so I was like, I want to talk to her about the Oscars. And I was told behind closed doors that she really didn't want to do the interview because I was small from a local radio station. It didn't mean anything. And the Oscars, nobody watches the Oscars. It doesn't make that big of a deal. No one cares. And then that ended up being the year that Will Smith slapped Chris Rock at the Oscars. And so then afterwards, they ended up using part of my interview for some other stuff that she was doing to say, hey, look, Alex was talking about the Oscars. And I was like, hey, assholes. Look who called it. You might not have wanted to be on my show, but it ended up working out for you. So I thought that was real funny. But yeah, so I had a radio show. This is what happens when you have a radio show. I can just ramble about crap for a long time. But at least I'm coherent, unlike Joe Biden. But yeah, so I had a radio show. I had her. Who else did I had? I had pretty much every candidate for Illinois governor in 2022. That was but minus one. There's one I didn't. Who was it? Max Solomon. Max Solomon was the one I didn't have on. I had different Senate candidates on, which was pretty fascinating. I've had a lot of different candidates, I've had different politicians. I've had Dr. James Lindsay on my show multiple times. I have had, I actually had an advertisement that was ran where it was Charlie Kirk shouting me out, which was really cool. I had Dave Landau on, who used to be third chair for Steven Crowder. Now has his own sketch comedy show on The Blaze. I had a lot of great guests on when I was just doing a radio show. And then I had a lot of people while I was doing it. I would meet all these people. And one big one was Joe Bob, who's from Turning Point USA. He's kind of a comedian, also a cultural commentator, works for the Daily Caller as well. And he told me, he goes, Kev, you should really get onto YouTube. And my whole thing the whole time is I actually hate social media. I hate it. I hate having to go through all the process of posting. I hate all of it. But it is like the only way nowadays that you can actually get a message to a broad audience and eventually be able to meet people face to face. That's what I really want to do. What I really do want to do with a lot of this is I would really like to be able to go and talk to people individually and in some way evangelize them into the conservative movement. I'd like that. That's what I like to do. And I could do it maybe through YouTube and stuff like that. I don't think I'm as good at it there, but like if I could have individual conversations with people and even bring people on the show, if you guys know anybody that is out there that is like, hey, I'm a liberal, but I'm really, really open to talking through my opinions and having them challenged and talk. I am so fascinating. And I love talking with people through their opinions and making them actually think through their opinions. And I think I'm good at it. When I was running Turning Point USA at Illinois State University, I had a conversation with somebody, multiple conversations with somebody while I was at tabling. And the first time he came up to me, he was like, I am a communist. He had read Marx, Engels, Keynes. He was very well-read, very smart individual, book smart. And then I started talking to him. And I had a lot of different conversations with him. He was an atheist and a Marxist. And then by the time I was a senior in college, I was like my late freshman year, early sophomore year. Then by the time I was a senior in college, his name is Riley, really good guy. He was a devout Lutheran Christian, which I'm a Catholic, so I didn't even bring him into that part as much. He's a devout Lutheran and was as conservative policy-wise, if not more than me. Started off when I was first started talking to him, atheist, communist. By the time I was leaving school, devout Lutheran conservative, right wing. That's not even just to brag on me. That's just to say that it's possible. It's possible. All right, let's take a look and listen. It looks like we might actually be starting here. Or not. It's all good. Demon Goral, thank you for the compliment there. Love the hair, Kev. I appreciate it. Whenever this actually starts, we will listen to the press conference. I see I have maybe a lot of... I know that I've gone up and down in viewership based on the things I'm talking about, because you might be tuning in for the Big Boy press conference. I would like you to be tuning in to the Big Boy press conference. However, that doesn't seem to be what's going on. And I could, if you guys want me to, I could just put up this and... So if you guys want that, I could just have that. But I figured if you wanted to just sit and listen to the music, then you could go do that. Or you could listen to me ramble about my college stories and my time as a radio host and everything else. So I will, please no, talk instead. Yeah, I thought that you would like that. I see other great comments here. I see Ryan McKinsey was posting things on my Ryan Mack from the Ryan Mack Show. Okay, it looks like we're actually starting here. So let's go.
Good evening. We just concluded this year's NATO Summit, and the consensus among members was it was a great success. It's especially momentous because it represented the 75th year of the most important military defense alliance in the world's history of the world. We should never forget that NATO grew out of the wreckage of World War II, the most destructive war in history. The idea was to create an alliance of free and democratic nations that would commit themselves to a compact of collective defense. Standing together, they knew we'd all be safer. An attack on one would be treated as an attack on all. And it's worked because a would-be aggressor knows if they attack one of us, they'll be attacked by all of us. Sending that message is the best way to deter aggression and prevent wars in the first place. For those who thought NATO's time had passed, they got a rude awakening when Putin invaded Ukraine. Some of the oldest and deepest fears in Europe roared back to life because once again, a murderous madman was on the march. But this time, no one cowered in appeasement, especially the United States. We collected intelligence that Russia was planning to invade Ukraine months before the invasion. I directed the intelligence community to be a significant amount of intelligence be declassified so I could start building an international coalition to oppose the invasion. Then in February, some of you remember, I warned the world that the invasion was imminent. I rallied a coalition of 50 nations from Europe to Asia to help Ukraine defend itself. Many foreign policy experts thought, as Putin amassed Russian forces just 100 miles north of Kyiv, the capital of Ukraine, but Putin thought it was the mother home of Russia. The capital would fall in less than a week. But the Ukrainian people, backed by a coalition to help build, stopped them. Today, Kyiv still stands, and NATO stands stronger than it has ever been. During the week of this summit, several heads of states made it a point in their statements to thank the United States and to thank me personally for all that NATO has achieved. NATO is not only stronger, NATO is bigger because we led the charge to bring in Finland and Sweden into the alliance, and it makes a gigantic difference. Excuse me. Meanwhile, my predecessor has made it clear he has no commitment to NATO. He's made it clear that he would feel no obligation to honor Article 5. He's already told Putin, and I quote, "Do whatever the hell you want." In fact, the day after Putin invaded Ukraine, here's what he said. It was genius. It was wonderful. Some of you forgot that, but that's exactly what he said. But I made it clear, a strong NATO is essential to American security. And I believe the obligation of Article 5 is sacred. And I would remind all Americans, Article 5 is invoked only once in NATO's long history, and that was to defend America after 9/11. I made it clear that I will not bow down to Putin. I will not walk away from Ukraine. I will keep NATO strong. That's exactly what we did, and exactly what we'll continue to do. Now, the future of American policy is up to the American people. This is much more than the political question. It's more than that. It's a national security issue. Don't reduce this to the usual testament that people talk about, the issues of being a political campaign. It's far too important. It's about the world we live in for decades to come. Every American must ask herself or himself, is the world safer with NATO? Are you safer? Is your family safer? I believe the American people know the answer to all those questions is yes. And I believe the American people understand that America is stronger because of our alliances. I believe the American consensus from Truman to Reagan to me still holds today. America cannot retreat from the world. We must lead the world. We're an indispensable nation, as Madeleine Albright wrote. Now let me turn to three other key issues. Just this morning, we had a great economic report showing inflation is down. Overall prices fell last month. Core inflation is the lowest it's been in 3 years. Prices are falling for cars, appliances, and airfares. Grocery prices have fallen since the start of the year. We're going to keep working to take down corporate greed to bring those prices down further. Meanwhile, Trump's calling for a 10% tariff on everything Americans buy, including food from overseas, vegetables, and other necessities. And economists tell us that that would cost the average American working family another $2,500 a year. It's a tax of $2,500 a year. Second, our efforts to secure the border, southern border, is working. After Trump killed the bipartisan effort to secure the border, Republicans and Democrats had worked on, because he thought it would benefit me and make him a loser, Republicans walked away. So I took executive action last month. As a consequence, working with Mexico, border encounters have gone down over 50%. The current level is lower today than when Trump left office. Third, for months, the United States has been working to secure a ceasefire in Gaza, to bring the hostages home, to create a path for peace and stability in the Middle East. 6 weeks ago, I laid out a detailed plan in writing. It was endorsed by the UN Security Council, the G7. That framework is now agreed on by both Israel and Hamas. So I sent my team to the region to hammer out the details. These are difficult, complex issues. There's still gaps to close. We're making progress. The trend is positive, and I'm determined to get this deal done and bring an end to this war, which should end now. Let me conclude where I began. We're the United States of America. We are the indispensable nation. Our leadership matters. Our partnerships matter. This moment matters. We must rise to meet it. With that, I'll take your questions. I've been given a list of people to call on here.
What the heck?
Jeff Mason.
Wait, a list of people to call on? This is bullcrap. These are scripted questions. I guarantee it. This is
Mr.
crap.
President, your political future has hung over the NATO summit a little bit this week. Speaker Pelosi made a point of suggesting that your decision on whether to stay in the race was still open. George Clooney and a handful of lawmakers have called on you to step aside. Reuters is reporting tonight that UAW leadership is concerned about your ability to win.
UAW just endorsed me, but go ahead.
Thank you. My question for you is, how are you incorporating these developments into your decision to stay? And separately, what concerns do you have about Vice President Harris's ability to beat Donald Trump if she were at the top of the ticket?
Look, I wouldn't have picked Vice President Trump to be vice president.
Vice
But I think
President
she's
Trump?
not qualified to be president. So let's start there.
What?
Number one. The fact is that the
Idiot. Doesn't
consideration
make any sense.
is that I think I'm the most qualified person to run for president. I beat him once, and I will beat him again. Secondly, the idea, I served in the Senate a long time. The idea that senators and congressmen running for office worry about the ticket is not unusual. And I might add, there are at least 5 presidents running or incumbent presidents who had lower numbers than I have now, later in the campaign. So there's a long way to go in this campaign. And so I'm just going to keep moving. And because, look, I got more work to do. We got more work to finish. There's so much, we made so much progress. Think about it. Think about where we are economically relative to the rest of the world. Name me a world leader who wouldn't want to trade places with our economy. We've created over 800,000 manufacturing jobs, 1.5 million, so things are moving. We got more to go. Working class people still need help. Corporate greed is still at large. Their prices, the corporate profits have doubled since the pandemic. They're coming down. And so I'm optimistic about where things are going. Danny Kemp, AFP.
From his list, he gets to pick from the list.
Thanks. Thank you, Mr. President. I wanted to ask you about you mixed up Presidents Zelensky and Putin earlier today. And you now have sort of your key allies, including the British Prime Minister, the President of France, the German Chancellor having to step in and make excuses for you on that. And officials here are saying off the record that your decline has become noticeable. Hasn't this now, frankly, become damaging for America's standing in the world? Thank you.
Did you see any damage to our standing in my leading this conference? Have you seen a more successful conference? What do you think? And the Putin piece, I was talking about Putin, and I said, and now, at the very end, I said, Putin. I said, oh, no, I'm sorry, Zelensky. And then I added 5 other names. Look, guys.
Look.
The idea anybody suggests that that we haven't had an incredibly successful conference. How many times did you hear in that conference? I know it sounds too self-serving, but other leaders, heads of state, in thanking me, saying the reason we're together is because of Biden, because Biden did the following. Look, folks, this is
Look, folks.
Well, anyway, I thought it was the most successful conference I've attended in a long time, and find me a world leader who didn't think it was. Next one, Nancy Cordes. CBS.
Thank you,
Off the
Mr.
list.
President.
Nancy,
You
from
mentioned
the list.
other instances in history where presidents have faced a challenge. But what makes this moment in history so unique is that it is not your enemies who are calling on you to reconsider your decision to stay in the race. It's your friends,
your
supporters,
own
people who
party.
think you've done a great job over the past 4 years. Have you spent time thinking about what it would mean for your legacy, which you've worked decades to build, if you stay in the race, despite the concerns that voters say they have, and you lose to someone who you yourself have argued is unfit to return to the Oval Office?
Well, look, I'm not in this for my legacy. I'm in this to complete the job I started. As you recall, understandably, many of you and many economists thought my initial initiatives that I put forward, can't do that, it's going to cause inflation, things are going to skyrocket, the debt's going to go up. What are you hearing now from mainstream economists? 16 economic Nobel laureates said I've done a hell of a job. That under my plan so far and what's going to happen, in the future, if I'm reelected, that things are going to get much better. Our economy is growing. I was determined when I got elected to stop the trickle-down economic theory. That if the wealthy did very well, everybody else would do well. My
Everybody
dad
else
a
was doing
well-read,
well
decent
until
guy.
you got into
I don't
office.
remember
You
much trickling
moron.
down on his kitchen table. Middle-class people and working-class people need help.
They do.
And so what
From
happened
you.
is I decided to was able to implement as president what I believed when I was a senator. And that is that the way to build this economy is from the middle out and the bottom up. That way we grow the economy. And the wealthy still do very well. They do fine. And guess what? Find me an economist, a mainstream economist who said we haven't done well. What have we not done that isn't working right now?
A
And
lot.
so we got more to do, though. We got to finish the
Inflation is
job.
insanely high.
And by the way, I come from the corporate state
getting
of the
4
world.
things from the grocery
Delaware
store.
has
You
more
absolute
corporations
idiot.
registered
You
in Delaware than
moron.
every other state in the nation combined. I'm not anti-corporate, but corporate profits have doubled since the pandemic. Doubled. It's time things get back in order a little bit. It's time, for example, if I'm reelected, we're going to make sure that rents are kept at 5% increase in corporate rents for apartments and the like and homes are limited to 5%. We're going to make a lot of changes that I've been talking about because we're going to continue to grow this economy. And by the way, I know, remember how I got so roundly criticized for being so pro-union, not labor, union. Well, guess what? I've been the most pro-union labor president in history. Not a joke. And guess
Not
what?
a joke.
We had the Treasury Department do a study. When unions do better, everybody does better. Everybody does better. And we talk about how, for example, remember when we talked about getting the computer chip industry back in the United States? Used to be 40% of the industry. We invented the chip. 40% of the industry was in the United States. And former presidents decided that the best way to do it is find the cheapest labor in the world, send the product over there and import what the product was. And so what did I do? I was told not to go over to Europe, to Asia, including Europe, but Asia. And I remember going to South Korea, convincing them to invest $20 billion in the United States to build computer chip factories. And I asked why when they finally decided to do it. And the answer was because you have the safest economy in the world and you have the best workers in the world. So the whole idea here is we've invested, there's over $50 billion in investment in computer chip manufacturing just coming into being. None of you thought that would happen. None of you thought that would happen. But it's happening. It's happening. And it's going to grow economies. All three, and by the way, red states and blue states. Matter of fact, there's as much in red states as blue states. I've made no distinction. So my generic point is that the idea that we can't continue to build and grow the economy, make it fairer. And like I said, from my standpoint, when the middle class does well, that's when the whole economy grows. The poor have a shot, the wealthy do well, but the wealthy got to start paying their taxes.
As a follow-up, sir, you mentioned that your Vice President Kamala Harris would be ready to serve on day one. Can you elaborate on that? What is it about her attributes and her accomplishments over the last 4 years that make her ready to serve on day one if necessary?
First of all, the way she's handled the issue of freedom of women's bodies to have control over their bodies. Secondly, her ability to handle almost any issue on the board. This was a hell of a prosecutor. She was a first-rate person, and in the Senate, she was really good. I wouldn't have picked her unless I thought she was qualified to be president. From the very beginning, I made no bones about that. She is qualified to be president. That's why I picked her. Felicia Schwartz, Financial Times.
Off the
Thank
list.
you, Mr. President. Presidency is the most straining job in the world, and it's 24/7. How can you say you'll be up for that next year, in 2 years, in 4 years, given the limits you've acknowledged that you have today?
The limits I've acknowledged I have?
There's been reporting that you've acknowledged that you need to go to bed earlier and your evening around 8.
That's not true. Look, what I said was, instead of my every day starting at 7 and going to bed at midnight, it'd be smarter for me to pace myself a little more. And I said, for example, the 8, 7, 6 stuff, instead of starting the fundraiser at 9 o'clock, start at 8 o'clock. People get to go home by 10 o'clock. That's what I'm talking about. I'm not talking about, and if you looked at my schedule since I made that stupid mistake in the campaign, in the debate, I mean, my schedule has been full bore. I've done, where's Trump been? Riding around in his golf cart, filling out his scorecard before he hits the ball?
He does rallies,
look,
man.
He's done
A
virtually
lot
nothing.
more people than anybody's ever come to see
And
you.
I have, I don't know how many, don't hold me to it, roughly 20 major events. Some with thousands of people showing up. And so I just think it's better. I always have an inclination, whether I was playing sports or doing politics, just to keep going, not stop. I just got to just pace myself a little more. Pace myself. And the next debate, I'm not going to be traveling into 15 time zones a week before. Anyway, that's what it was about. That's what it was about. And by the way, even with that, I love my staff, but they add things all the time. At the very end, I'm catching hell from my wife for that. Anyway,
He's forgetting.
I'm sorry.
I guarantee you, he forgot who
Zeke
the
Miller,
last.
Associated Press.
He forgot who the last one was. I
Thank you,
guarantee
Mr. President. Two questions for you. First, on the NATO summit, President Zelensky, in your meeting with him, he pressed you to lift your limitations on the Ukrainian use of American weapons, saying that, in his public remarks afterwards, saying that Ukraine cannot win the war unless those limitations are lifted. Are you reconsidering your position on that? And then secondly, following up on Felicia's question there, leaders of your own party have said that they're not worried about that debate. They're worried about the next bad night and the bad night after that. How can you reassure the American people that you are up to the task and that there won't be more bad nights at a debate stage or somewhere else?
First thing about Zelensky asking for the ability to strike deep into Russia. We've allowed Zelensky to use American weapons in the near term and the near abroad into Russia. Whether or not he should be attacked. For example, should Zelensky, he's not. If he had the capacity to strike Moscow, strike the Kremlin, would that make sense? It wouldn't. The question is, what's the best use of the weaponry he has, and the weaponry we're getting to him? I've gotten a more long-range capacity, as well as defensive capacity. And so our military is where I'm following the advice of my commander-in-chief, the chief of staff of the military, as well as the Secretary of Defense and our intelligence people. And we're making a day-to-day basis on what they should and shouldn't go, how far they should go in. That's a logical thing to do. Second question related to
Bad nights, sir. How can you reassure the American people that you won't have more bad nights, whether they be on a debate stage or it's a matter of foreign policy?
Well, I tell you what, the best way to assure them is the way I assure myself. And that is, am I getting the job done? Am I getting the job done? Can you name me somebody who's gotten more major piece of legislation passed in 3.5 years? I created 2,000 jobs just last week. So if I slow down, I can't get the job done. That's a sign that I shouldn't be doing it.
What?
But there's no indication of that yet. None. Who I got here? Merrick, Pulaski Radio.
Thank you, Mr. President. How are you?
I'm well.
The elections in the US have consequences around the world. You have pretty high standing in Europe. I just asked President Macron about you, and he said we are happy to have him as the President of the United States. But there is a concern many people in Poland and across Europe are worried that the former president may win the election. And there's a lot of concern that Donald Trump may weaken NATO, stop supporting Ukraine, or push Ukraine to give up territories to Russia.
They're correct.
And yourself was warning just 2 minutes ago about it. So my question is, do you think that Europe will be left on its own if Donald Trump wins the election? And what's your advice to European leaders to prepare for possible US disengagement?
Well, look, I think, how can I say this without sounding too self-serving? I'm not having any of my European allies come up to me and say, Joe, don't run. What I hear them say is, you've got to win. You can't let this guy come forward. He'd be a disaster.
Yeah, because they're mooching off of
Be
us,
disaster.
and you let them do it.
I mean, I think he said in one of his rallies, don't hold me to this, recently, where NATO, I just learned about NATO or something to that effect. Foreign policy has never been his strong point. And he seems to have an affinity to people who are authoritarian. That worries, as I tell you from Poland, that worries Europe. That worries Poland. And nobody, including the people of Poland, think that if he wins in Ukraine, he's going to stop in Ukraine, that that's going to be the end of it. And so what I can say is, I think I'm the best qualified person to do the job, to make sure that Ukraine does not fall, that Ukraine succeeds, that the European alliance stays strong. And you may recall, no one was talking about Finland joining NATO. I remember talking to Putin right after we got elected in Geneva. And he was talking about what we should do, what we couldn't be in Eastern Europe, et cetera. And I said, you're looking for the Finlandization of Ukraine, because you're going to get the NATOization of Finland. And about 4 weeks later, I got a call. No, that's not true. Probably 5 months later, from the president of Finland, could he come and see me? Because in my office, I invited him to the Oval Office. We sat down and talked. He said he wanted to join NATO. Could I help? And I did. It wasn't automatic. And then I got a call from the Swedes. I beg your pardon? And so Finland joined NATO. 800-mile border is a significant, and they're already allies, but they weren't part of NATO. And you heard, I think you heard, maybe, I can't recall what he said in public in our closed meeting, but he wouldn't mind being repeated. He said, we decided in Finland, the people of Finland decided they had to be part of NATO. It was in our interest because of the joint ability to be together to dissuade any attack on Finland. And the same thing with Sweden. It took a lot of selling to some folks, particularly in Turkey and other places, to agree to the expansion. But it expanded. And we're a hell of a lot stronger because of it. We're more secure because of it. And by the way, I was able to get 50 other nations, 50, to support Ukraine. 50. And we were able to bring about a coalition of Europe and Asia, Japan and South Korea. I just we talked about AUKUS, and we talked about the relationship between Australia, New Zealand, Japan, South Korea, the United States. We're making the world safer and stronger because we have to deal with the new arrangement that exists in the world. The Cold War is over. The post-war era is over. What is going to replace it? And I respectfully suggest I have a pretty good idea what that should be. I've convinced a lot of people to follow it, and we're just going to get stronger. David Sanger.
From the list.
Where is it?
Thank you, Mr. President.
Be nice, David.
Mr. President, the NATO declaration that was issued yesterday was very notable because it described China as a decisive enabler of the war in Ukraine for its provision of critical goods to the Russians. That's part of a broader partnership that seems to have cemented in place in the past 2 or 3 years. I think one that you were a little bit doubtful of when we asked you about it some time ago. So I'd be interested to know whether you have a strategy now of trying to interrupt the partnership between China and Russia, and whether or not in a second term you would pursue that, if you could describe that strategy to us. And along the way, could you also tell us whether you think, just to follow up on Felicia's question, that if you were in a room with Vladimir Putin again, the way you were 3 years ago, or with President Xi, that a few years from now you will be able to go negotiate with them, handle them one-on-one?
Well, the first part of the question is, we discussed and I raised in the NATO Summit, and others raised, the future of China's involvement, what they're going to do, what they're doing with Russia in terms of accommodating, facilitating. They're getting access to additional. They're not supplying weapons themselves. They're supplying mechanisms for them to be able to get weapons. And China's position is basically, and I've spent more time with Xi Jinping than any world leader has, over 90 hours since being vice president all the way through, for real. And by the way, I handed all my notes. But my point is that Xi believes that China is a large enough market that they can entice any country, including European countries, to invest there in return for commitments from Europe to do A, B, C, or D, or not to do certain things. What's happened is we had a long discussion about what we cannot, you have to make clear, China has to understand that if they are supplying Russia with information and capacity, along with working with North Korea and others to help Russia in armament, that they're not going to benefit economically as a consequence of that by getting the kind of investment they're looking for. And so, for example, we're in a situation where we've reestablished direct contact with China after that. Remember the balloon, quote unquote, going down, and all of a sudden things came to an end? Well, we set up a new mechanism. There's a direct line between Xi and me, and our military has direct access to one another, and they contact one another when we have problems. The issue is that we have to make sure that Xi understands there's a price to pay for undercutting both the Pacific Basin as well as Europe, and as it relates to Russia and dealing with Ukraine. And so we, for example, if you want to invest in China, as you know this area really well. If you want to invest in China, you have to have a 51% Chinese owner. You have to make sure that you do by their rules, and you don't have the authority, and you have to provide all access to all the data and information you have. There was a while there, as you recall, the last administration and other administrations, where the access to that market was enticing enough to get companies to come in because they had access to over 1 billion people in a market, not 1 billion, but a lot of people in the market. And so they were doing it. But that got curtailed when we started saying we're going to play by the same rules. For example, the idea they don't abide by the international rules related to subsidizing products by the government funding. So guess what? They're not going to be able to export their electric vehicles to the United States without a significant tariff. Others are doing the same thing around the world. But it is a concern. It is a concern that you have both China North Korea, Russia, Iran, countries that are not necessarily coordinated in the past, looking to figure out how they can have.
I don't know if what's going on right now. Give me one moment and I will make sure this all gets fixed.
Help them in as a consequence that their ability to fight in Ukraine. The other thing that we talked a lot about is that, and I raised it, and there was I didn't hear any. I can't swear that everyone agreed because not everyone got to talk about it, but we need a new industrial policy in the West. For example, we talked about how both the EU as well as NATO has to be able to begin to build their own munition capacity, has to be able to generate their own capacity to provide for weapons and the ability to, it came as a surprise to some of us how we had fallen behind in the West in terms of the ability to construct new material, new weaponry, new everything from vehicles to weapon systems. And so one of the things that came out of this was we're going to be meeting again with a number of my colleagues, my European colleagues, is what do we do to increase the capacity of the West, particularly in Europe and Japan, to be able to generate the kind of ability to produce their own weapon systems. Not just for themselves, but to be able to generate that. It's the same, it's what Russia's trying to figure out. They went to China and they didn't get the weapons, but then they went to North Korea. But we're going to be in a position where the West is going to become the industrial base for the ability to have all the defensive weapons that we need. That was a discussion as well.
President, I'm not sure you answered on whether you would be ready to go deal with Putin and Xi 2 or 3 years from now.
I'm ready to deal with them now and 3 years from now. Look, like I said, I'm dealing with Xi right now and direct contact with him. I have no good reason to talk to Putin right now. There's not much that he is prepared to do in terms of accommodating any change in his behavior. And but there isn't any world leader I'm not prepared to deal with. But I understand that the generic point is Putin ready to talk? I'm not ready to talk to Putin unless Putin's ready to change his behavior. And the idea, look.
It sounds like an ex. Like,
Putin's
I'm
got
not
a
ready to
problem.
talk to my ex until he's ready to
First of
change
all,
his behavior.
in this war that he is supposedly have won. And by the way, I think, don't hold me to the exact number, but I think that Russia had 17.3% of Ukraine that they've conquered. Now it's 17.4. I mean, in terms of percentage of territory. They've not been very successful. They've caused horrible damage and loss of life, but they've also lost over 350,000 troops, military, killed or wounded. They have over 1 million people, particularly young people with technical capability, leaving Russia because they see no future there. They've got a problem. But what they do have control of is they are very good at controlling and running the public outcry that relates to how they use mechanisms to communicate with people. They lie like hell to the constituencies. They lie like hell about what's going on. And so the idea that we're going to be able to fundamentally change Russia in the near term is not likely. But one thing for certain, if we allow Russia to succeed in Ukraine, they're not stopping in Ukraine. I recommend, I know you know this because you've written about it, read Putin's speech after they moved in, what it was all about in Kyiv. It wasn't about just, anyway, read what his objective is. And anyway, but so I think that I'm prepared to talk to any leader who wants to talk, including if Putin called me and wanted to talk. Last time I talked to Putin was trying to get him to work on an arms control agreement related to nuclear weapons in space. That didn't go very far. So my point is, I'm prepared to talk to anybody, but I don't see any inclination. There is an inclination on the part of the Chinese to keep in contact with me because they're not sure where this all goes. And look what's happened in Asia. We have strengthened the Asian Pacific area more than anyone else has. We just put together with today. I brought on. I asked our NATO allies that we bring on the group from the South Pacific, Australia, New Zealand, Japan, Australia. I already mentioned Australia, and I met twice now. I think with the 14 leaders of the Pacific Island nations, and we've slowed down what's going on there. We slowed down China's reach, but there's a lot of work to do. This is a moving target, and I don't take it lightly. Assam from NPR.
Thank you, Mr. President. Asma Khalid with NPR. I have two questions. Earlier, you spoke about the ceasefire plan between Israel and Hamas. We're now looking at 10 months of war, and I'm curious if there's anything that you feel personally you wish you would have done differently over the course of the war. And then secondly, if I may, I wanted to ask you about your presidential campaign. I remember covering your campaign in 2020, and there was a moment where you referred to yourself as a, quote, bridge candidacy, a transition to a younger generation of leaders. I want to understand what changed.
Two things. Let's go back to when you talked about would I have changed anything that's happening with Israel and the Palestinians and the Palestinian movement. The answer is, as you recall, from the very beginning, I went to Israel, but I also got immediate contact with Sisi in Egypt. I met with the King of Jordan. I met with most of the Arab leaders to try to get a consensus going as to what had to be done to deal with getting more aid and food and medicine into the Gaza Strip. And we pushed it really hard. And Israel occasionally was less than cooperative, number one. The Israeli War Cabinet, I've been dealing with Israel since Golda Meir. I've saw some of the reporters around here come here all the time have heard me say this. The first time I met with Golda Meir, I sat across from her at her desk, and her assistant was Rabin sitting next to me. That's how far back I go. I know Israel well, and I support Israel. But this war cabinet is one of the most conservative war cabinets in the history of Israel. And there's no ultimate answer other than a two-state solution here. And so what was able to be done in terms of the plan I put together was it would be a process for a two-state solution. And we get the Arab nations to, particularly from Egypt all the way to Saudi Arabia, to be in a position where they would cooperate in the transition so that they could keep the peace in Gaza without Israeli forces staying in Gaza. The question has been from the beginning, what's the day after in Gaza? And the day after in Gaza has to be, the end of the day after has to be no occupation by Israel on the Gaza Strip, as well as the ability for us to get in and out as rapidly as you can, all that's needed there. I've been disappointed that some of the things that I've put forward have not succeeded as well, like the port we attached from Cyprus. I was hopeful that would be more successful. But that's why when I went to Israel immediately after the massacres that occurred at the hands of Hamas, that I the one thing I said to the Israelis, and I met with the War Cabinet and with Bibi, don't make the same mistake America made after bin Laden. There's no need to occupy anywhere. Go after the people who did the job. You may recall, I still get criticized for it, but I was totally opposed to the occupation and trying to unite Afghanistan. Once we got bin Laden, we should have moved on, because it was not in our. No one's ever going to unite that country. I've been over every inch of that, not every inch, the entirety from the poppy fields all the way to the north. I said, don't make the same mistake we made. Don't think that's what you should be doing, is doubling down. We'll help you find the bad guys, Sinwar and company. And all this criticism about I wouldn't provide when the weapons they needed. I'm not providing 2,000-pound bombs. They cannot be used in Gaza or any populated area without causing great human tragedy and damage. But remember what happened when you had the attack on Israel with rockets and ballistic missiles. I was able to unite the Arab nations as well as Europe, and nothing happened. Nothing got hurt. It sent an incredible lesson to what was going on from the Middle East. So there's a lot of things, in retrospect, I wish I had been able to convince the Israelis to do. But the bottom line is we have a chance now. It's time to end this war. Doesn't mean walk away from going after Sinwar and Hamas. And if you notice, you know better than most, there is a growing dissatisfaction on the West Bank from the Palestinians about Hamas. Hamas is not popular now. And so there's a lot of moving parts. I just have to keep moving to make sure that we get as much done as we can toward a ceasefire, and get those. And by the way, look at the numbers in Israel. I mean, my numbers are better in Israel than they are here. But then again, they're better than a lot of other people here.
That's not
too.
a brag.
Bridge candidacy in 2020. You referred to yourself as being a bridge candidate for a younger, fresher generation of Democratic leaders. And I wanted to know what changed.
What changed was the gravity of the situation I inherited in terms of the economy, our foreign policy, and domestic division. And I think, I won't put words in anybody's mouth. Most presidential historians give me credit for having accomplished more than most any president since Johnson and maybe before that to get major pieces of legislation passed. And what I realized was my long time in the Senate had equipped me to have the wisdom to know how to deal with the Congress to get things done. We got more major legislation passed that no one thought would happen. And I want to finish it, to get that finished. If tomorrow, if we had a circumstance where there was a lineup and I hadn't inherited what I did and we just moved things along, anyway, it's going to change.
Last question.
Haley Bull, Scripps. Or no, Josh Weingrove, I'm sorry, was the next one. I'll do 2 more questions.
Thank you, Mr. President. Many of your colleagues, Democrats in the Hill, are watching tonight as they assess what they want to say about your candidacy. I'm wondering how you're thinking of this right now. It seems like your answer is clear, but they're watching how things go tonight, tomorrow in Michigan, next week in Texas and Nevada. Are you thinking that way about how the next week or 2 goes would inform you?
Am I using that way?
Are you thinking that way about how the next 2 weeks go? Will that affect your decision, or are you fully determined on running in November as the party's nominee?
I'm determined on running, but I think it's important that I allay fears by let them see me out there. Let me see them out,
It does
for the
lay
longest
fears.
time it was, Biden's not prepared to sit with us unscripted. Biden's not prepared to, anyway. And so what I'm doing is, and I've been doing, I think we've done over 20 major events from Wisconsin to North Carolina to anyway, to demonstrate that I'm going out in the areas where we think we can win, where we can persuade people to move our way, or people are already there. And here, look, the other thing is, we have the most extensive campaign organization of anybody's had in a long, long time. We have well over 1,000 volunteers knocking on doors, making phone calls, making tens of thousands of phone calls. We have headquarters. I forget exactly how many. I want to cite a number and then find out I'm off. But we have scores of headquarters in all the toss-up states. We're organized. We're moving, and that's awful hard to replace in the near term. And so, and here's the other thing. I was in the Senate a long time. Very proud of what I've done in the Senate. I was chairman of the Foreign Relations Committee for a long time, and I was chairman or ranking member and chairman of the Judiciary Committee. I'm going to be going down to the Johnson Library. Anyway, I'm going to be going around making the case of the things that I think we have to finish and how we can't afford to lose what we've done or backslide on civil rights, civil liberties, women's rights. There's that little button we have. Control guns, not girls. I mean, the idea we're sitting around, this where Kamala is so good as well.
Gun rights and women's rights, asshole.
More children are killed by a bullet than any other cause of death. The United States of America.
Oh, now we have angry
What
Biden.
the hell are we
This is
doing?
called the second wind.
What are we doing?
Looks like this shit
We got
got
a
out.
candidate saying, promise the NRA, don't worry, I'm not going to do anything. I'm not going to do anything. You got a Supreme Court that is what you might call the most conservative court in American history.
What's wrong
This
with
is
that?
ridiculous. There's so much we can do still. And I'm determined to get it done. It's about freedom. And by the way, I'll end this. Well, I'm not going to do that. Haley has to come up too. But I remember I made a speech on democracy in Philadelphia at Independence Hall. And I'm not being critical, just observing. The bulk of the press said, what the hell is he talking about that for? Democracy. You did. Democracy is not an issue. Democracy is not an issue. Except the polling data showed 60% of the people knew I was right, thought I was right. I'm not asking you a question. You don't have to answer, obviously. But do you think our democracy is under siege based on this court? Do you think democracy is under siege based on Project 2025? Do you think he means what he says when he says he's going to do away with the civil service, eliminate the Department of Education, make sure? I mean, we've never been here before. And that's the other reason why you say hand off to another generation. I've got to finish this job. I've got to finish this job because there's so much at stake.
We've had some discussions over the past few days with your press secretary about the question of health exams. And you said you take a cognitive test every day in this job. Are you open to taking another physical or test before the election? Governor Whitmer of Michigan, for instance, said it wouldn't hurt to take a test.
Well, look, two things. One, I've taken 3 significant and intense neurological exams by a neurologist. In each case, as recently as February. And they say I'm in good shape, okay? Although I do have a little problem with my left foot because it's not as sensitive because I broke my foot and didn't wear the boot. But I'm good. I'm tested every single day about my neurological capacity to do decisions I make every day. You talk to my staff, all of you talk to my staff. Sometimes my staff talks a lot. But the fact of the matter is, I don't think you have them telling you that all the major ideas we've undertaken haven't been in part initiated by me. I remember with the staff, I said, I'm going to go to South Korea. We're going to get the chip. What are you doing? I'm going to get Japan and Korea back together again after essentially having hostilities toward one another since the end of World War II. I'm going to move and see that we can expand it. You know, The only thing age does is help you with it. Creates a little bit of wisdom if you pay attention. And so the point I'm making is, I think it's important that if the neurologist tells me he thinks I need another exam, and by the way, I've laid every bit of the record out. Hadn't hidden a thing. Don't ask Trump for his, okay? I laid it all out. And every single day, I'm surrounded by good docs. If they think there's a problem, I promise you, or even if they don't think it's a problem, they think I should have a neurological exam again, I'll do it. But no one's suggesting that to me now. And I'll ask you another question. No matter what I did, no one's going to be satisfied. Did you have 7 docs? Did you have 2? Who'd you have? Did you do this? How many times? So I am not opposed if my doctors tell me I should have another neurological exam, I'll do it. But that's where I am.
How hard was that? You
Haley
literally
Bull,
could have
Scripps.
just started and said,
Thank you,
yeah,
Mr.
I'll
President.
take another test.
You said
and
you're
be
making
done.
decisions on a day-to-day basis when it comes to support for Ukraine. Does that mean you have not closed the door on further considering lifting restrictions for U.S.-made weapons inside Russia? And if I may, your convention is coming up where your delegates are pledged to make you the official nominee.
Check out this
If they have
dude's hair
second
back
thoughts,
here.
are they
Just
free
saying,
to
check
vote
out
their
that hair.
conscience?
That's crazy.
Obviously, they're free to do whatever they want, but I get overwhelming support. Overwhelming support. I won, I forget how many votes I won in the primary. Overwhelming. And so tomorrow, if all of a sudden I show up at the convention, everybody says, we want somebody else, that's the democratic process. It's not going to happen.
Not gonna happen. A whisper.
For someone else?
Sure. Look, I'll end this with this. I served in the Senate a long time.
We know.
I understand the impetus of candidates running for local office and whether they think the top if they can help them or not. In my state of Delaware, which was a very, at least it was a red state when I started, in terms of we now talk red and blue. I don't recall most of the Democratic presidents winning my state when I was a candidate. The truth of the matter is I understand the self-interest of every candidate. If they think that, running with Biden at the top is going to hurt them, then they're going to run away. I get it. But so far, go and look at the polling data in their states. Look at the in-depth, and by the way, I think you'd all acknowledge, and you're all experts. I'm not being solicitous about the president. You're experts on this stuff. How accurate does anybody think the polls are these days? I can give you a series of polls where you have likely voters, me versus Trump, where I win all the time. When the unlikely voters vote, he wins sometimes. The bottom line is all the polling data right now, which I think is premature because the campaign really hasn't even started. I mean, it hadn't started in earnest yet. Most of the time, it doesn't start till after September, after Labor Day. So a lot can happen. But I think I'm the best I believe I'm the best qualified to govern. And I think I'm the best qualified to win. But there are other people who could beat Trump too. But it's awful start from scratch. And, we talk about, money raised. We're not doing bad. We got about $220 million in the bank. We're doing well. So with that, do you have any want to follow up on any of that? You just asked me.
Yes.
You didn't answer the
You
question.
earlier explained confidence in your vice president.
Yes.
If your team came back and showed you data that she would fare better against former President Donald Trump, would you reconsider your decision to stay in the race?
No, unless they came back and said, there's no way you can win. Me. No one's saying that. No poll says that.
That's actually.
Okay. Thanks.
This ends tonight's press conference.
Thanks, everybody.
Let's see what he does.
This concludes.
Respectfully, earlier you misspoke in your opening answer. You referred to Vice President Harris as Vice President Trump. Right now, Donald Trump is using that to mock your age and your memory. How do you combat that criticism from tonight?
Listen to him.
This concludes tonight's press conference. Thank you, everybody.
Listen to him?
Thanks, everyone.
Wait, did he just say listen to him? Listen to him. I'm going back. We're watching that one more time, everybody. I don't give a crap about the Wall Street Journal. Oh, I'll take that off screen. I'll skip through that. I cannot believe. Wait, listen to him. Let's go back.
He thinks I need another exam. Ask me.
Yes.
Harris as Vice President Trump. Right now, Donald Trump is using that to mock your age and your memory. How do you combat that criticism from tonight?
Listen to him.
This concludes tonight's press
Oh
conference.
my
Thank you, everybody.
God.
Thanks, everyone.
Oh my God. Listen to him? That's only going to make it worse. Wow. If there is any word to describe tonight, it would be one of the words that Joe Biden used constantly throughout that entire press conference. And that would be anyway. Anyway. The reason why I say the word of the night will be anyway is because while there are insane things that happened during that, even the end of that, in which he said, listen to him, which sure, maybe he was being sarcastic. I didn't really hear enough sarcasm in that. I heard listen to him. Anyway, all of his events have been like this since the debate. Everybody is watching constantly to see what he will say, how he will mess up. Any sign that maybe his age isn't a question, but it is now a question in everyone's heads. And I think most people have made up their minds. I think about some of those questions that were near the end. He was asked regarding, he started talking about all these different events that he was having. He was saying that look at all these events. These are my way. I'm showing you. I'm doing all these different events. My health is fine. I'm doing all these events. Well, the thing is, Joe, you can do as many events as you want. But when every single one makes a headline because you mix up Putin for Zelensky or this person for that person, it's not every once in a while. It is constant. Every single event you go to, you have an instance in which you forget words, you wander off, you trail off at the end of a sentence without ever finishing a thought. You ramble about stories that don't make any sense and aren't actually consistent with what's happened in your life. You lie. Or misremember, maybe just because your mind is going. And so the quantity of events you have mean nothing when the quality is not there. Donald Trump holds several events. He's not just riding around in a golf cart, which is a joke you've repeated not only on the Morning Joe earlier this week, but also tonight, as if it's the only thing your staff writers can get you to remember. No, Donald Trump holds a lot of rallies in which he gets large attendance and makes headlines not for necessarily messing up, which have happened on occasion. I mean, when you hold that many, you're bound to mess up from time to time. I'll grant some grace on that. But no, he makes headlines because of his comedy and for the length of time of which he is up there. Tonight was a marathon for Joe Biden. but would have been a sprint for Donald Trump. He also brags about his extensive campaign team. However, he bragged about a relatively small number of door knockers and phone callers. Scores, from what I understand, just have it really should be the amount of ground game that you should be having as an incumbent president should be vast, especially for somebody who allegedly got more votes than any presidential candidate in the history of the country. It really should be the largest. You would think that if you got the most votes out of any other presidential campaign ever, you would think that you would have the largest ground game of any president in campaign history, but not. I really appreciate you guys in the chat. Keep it coming. I do. Keep letting me know what you guys are thinking. And don't forget to follow, comment, everything like that. He did better than you expected. I won't disagree, but it still was not good. I think this, he talks about age. Near the end, he had a quote specifically that says, age, he said, age creates wisdom if you pay attention. Age does create wisdom if you pay attention. There was a comment I got months ago on my YouTube that I thought was very interesting. It's not necessarily the age of the car, it's the amount of miles it's been driven. And I think that's a very important thing. I feel like people conflate age with wisdom all the time. And yes, it would make sense that somebody who is older has seen more, experienced more, and thus has more wisdom. And I think that that is relatively true, but is a drastic overgeneralization, because somebody like Joe Biden, who has been in the Senate for 40 plus years and then was a vice president and then is now the president, is not necessarily the wisest individual. No, he definitely has some, or probably would have some wisdom on certain things in government if you sat down with him on one-on-one. But in terms of what it's like to be maybe living in poverty or even just in the middle class, Joe Biden has no wisdom. Joe Biden hasn't been in the middle class since the minimum wage was like $6, if not even less. Joe Biden hasn't been in the middle class since a college education costs you at most $20,000 for 4 years. Joe Biden hasn't been in the middle class since he had like a decent amount of hair on his head and it was colored. Joe Biden hasn't been in the middle class since like Jimmy Carter was president, if that even. So when he talks about wisdom, and he also says, if you pay attention. Well, the other thing, Joe, is that your mind right now is trying to pay for checks that your body can't cash. And your mind can't cash. It's simply not there. Earlier, somebody said in the chat, I saw it. It was Amanda, I believe, said he's losing another brain cell. And for somebody like him at his age, at his obviously rapid mental decline, every brain cell counts. I mean, it does for everybody, but it seems like they're dwindling. It's hanging on by a thread. And it's frankly sad. It's a sad state of our country that this is the man who has become the nominee for president. Notice how so little of the conversation while he was up there was about any policy. Somebody in the chat asked, I believe it was Raven, asked, why aren't they asking about the open border? Pushing more on guns, other policies. Joe Biden would sometimes bring it to policies and he would lie, and he obviously got very, very angry. He got like Dwight Schrute level authoritarian talking when he was like, we need to control guns, not women. And he got into his quick MSNBC rant there that they'll play to make it seem like he actually had a good night. But other than that, the only policy he talked about was the lie about Project 2025, a little bit about NATO because that was the summit he was at. He went on random rants and rambles about Ukraine and the Middle East and just simply forgot questions that he was asked. He had a list of the reporters that he was actually allowed to talk to. Look, I will even agree with Demon Girl, as she said earlier in the chat. He did better than I expected. Yes. But when your press conference is called a, quote, big boy press conference and your bar is so low, he stepped right over it. The expectations were low. And so doing better than you expected still doesn't mean that he did well. You're welcome for airing this and talking over as little as possible. What do you guys think, though? Am I wrong in my analysis? What else is there to say about tonight's performance? I truly believe that performance is the right word. Because I think that most of this was scripted. I think that's the only way that, I mean, when you listen to how the reporters were talking, the reporters sounded very scripted. And yes, like you're going to have your prepped questions, especially if you know that he's calling on you. Yeah, you're going to have your prepped questions and it might sound a little scripted. But with even the admission that he has a list of the reporters to call on, and he even messed up reading that list, it's a Hollywood production. That's really the way I see it. It's a Hollywood production. And it's put on by people like Jill Biden, who makes Hollywood productions. I mean, there's even a recent report, and this is the thing I would like to end on tonight because I did mention that I was going to. But like I said, keep going in the comments. I'll get to some comments before I end tonight. But I want to bring up this report that this is one thing that recently was brought to light regarding Jill Biden. Jill Biden is brought this. Here we go. The Marine Corps band was instructed last fall to come up with an entrance theme song for the First Lady, a source told the Washington Examiner. The band now has in its repertoire an original composition titled Fanfare for the First Lady. The song, the source said, is essentially Jill Biden's personal Hail to the Chief, in that it is to be performed and repeated at official White House functions from her first appearance until she is ready to speak. Updated as of April 2022, the United States Marine Band has retired Fanfare for the First Lady, according to a source familiar with the decision. The band quietly shelved the song following the publication of the article. And so the funniest thing is the song itself. Take a look and a listen right here to the song that was written specifically for Jill Biden and then for some reason was shelved right here.
Ladies and gentlemen, the First Lady of the United States, Jill Biden, accompanied by the Secretary of Education, Miguel Cardona, and the 2020 and 2021 National Teachers of the Year, Tabitha Rosproy and Juliana Urtubey.
So that was Jill Biden's song that was written specifically for her at her request. And the biggest thing that I noticed about that is it's relatively unremarkable. Like, that's the main thing I would say about it is, like, I could come and call it ugly and say it's terrible. It just feels unremarkable to me. It feels relatively forgettable. And honestly, the entirety of that performance of that seems so Capitol-esque. And that's what I really think about Jill Biden. And I think Jill Biden, I think a lot of Democrats nowadays, this is what they embody and this is what they encompass, is very Hunger Games-esque idea of that we're better than everybody. They're the elite. It's like the Met Gala kind of idea. Did that sound out of tune? Maybe a little bit, yeah. It was, like I said, it was unremarkable. It didn't sound like something that the highest, like the most powerful band or the band for the most powerful person in the world, didn't sound like something that they would play. It sounded like something that at like a summer home of a very wealthy person, like this is what they would have their few trumpeters play when they're having some special guests over. Like the Hunger Games Capitol-esque. Like we are above you, we are better. But in reality, it just really looks like that they live in like the Target setups for homes that they have in Target, you know, like everything is curated by Target or IKEA. It's all a performance. That's what it's all about. It is not about governing. It is not about making the world a better place. It's not about helping the average person. It's not about any type of a populist ideology. It isn't about the people. These people that are in power right now are selfish. They're selfish. All they are thinking about is themselves. What song am I going to have play when I get up there? Is it going to be just for me? It needs to be written just for me. No, like she could have easily had like Back in Black play and that would have been like badass and I probably would have rocked out to it. But instead, she needs the White House Marine Corps to play a song that was specifically written for her. And then it got shelved. Why? Probably because it wasn't that good. And that's who's currently pushing President Biden, the feeble, mentally incapacitated, feeble old man, to keep running despite the clear evidence that he is unfit for office and unfit to be president. However, I will say, Jill Biden's abuse of her husband is the best thing politically for Republicans. Because assuming he keeps his promise that he's staying in, he will lose disastrously. If the rules are played by enough. He will lose disastrously. Donald Trump will become president. Liberals' minds will explode. Joe can actually, that's actually the other thing too. Joe will get the help probably that he needs, or at least he can go basically be on hospice immediately following the election. And the country can get back on track. That's the way I see it. That's the way I see it. But am I wrong? Am I wrong? Let me know in the comments. Don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, comment what you think, share it with your friends, all that fun stuff. Let's get to a few comments right here. And then it's going on 2.5 hours right now, so I'll probably get off after that. But Demon Gore was judging people's outfits. I wonder what you thought. Wonder what Ducey's question would have been. Absolutely. I wonder if Ducey was even there, if he was even allowed to go. 2:33 a.m. here. So I say good night. Thank you, Richard, for joining. I appreciate it. And thank you for subscribing, hopefully. It's worth the watch. I'm really sorry about what you have to deal with in the USA. Well, Richard, we're going to win. We're going to do. He already forgot he gave a presser tonight. They made it all about his health, which is easy for him to pivot to. They know his policies have failed. That's true. He knows his policies has failed too. As a musician myself, that wasn't impressive, and it was pretty out of tune. I don't think they were very enthusiastic with that one. Absolutely. Unfortunately, he did well enough to still run, but bad enough to be trolled online. Yeah, that's true. That's true. Tune in, guys. Make sure you guys are subscribed to the channel. We'll have more. I'll have shorts that come out about this whole thing and constantly about different things that are going on. And I'll make sure to cover different things in my live streams, which happen consistently every Sunday with here and there off. I am getting ready to move to law school, so stay tuned for that. I have a lot more content coming out while I'm in law school too. So don't go anywhere. The best is yet to come, as I always say. Like I always say as well, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, comment what you think, share it with your friends, and God bless you. God bless America. And thank you so much for watching Speechless.